This is a Media Lab podcast. Welcome to Putting It Together, the podcast that goes through the entire body of work of Stephen Sondheim, show by show and song by song. My name is Kyle Marshall, your self-described Sondheim expert. I think I mentioned it on the show before, but I just find it magical. There is this beautiful moment in musical theater when the full company is on stage. Now, normally it can be the Act 1 closer, occasionally it can even be the Act 2 opener, or even just the finale. But broadly speaking, there's usually a moment when the entire company is on stage and they're singing together, and it's this beautiful harmony, and it's one of the best things in life to experience. What Sondheim likes to do, even as far back as West Side Story, is have it so that characters are singing different melodies over top of one another, and he still is able to make it work. Yes, we have to give thanks to Leonard Bernstein, who was very instrumental in making this song we're going to be talking about here today work, but this would be a calling card going forward for Stephen Sondheim. I am excited to talk about it. I know we're right in the middle now of our West Side Story Redux. As I'm recording this, the new movie is a mere, I think, 3 weeks away from being released, which I am super excited about. And today we're going to be talking, of course, about the Tonight Quintet, which Sondheim likes to joke is actually a quartet, but we call it a quintet because there's 5 distinct people singing, or groups singing, but really only 4 different melodies that are being sung. But let's not split hairs. Of course, I'm being joined again by Christine Chen of Bottomless Broadway. Definitely go and check out her podcast as well. But let's get into it. Let's get into talking about the Tonight Quintet.
The Jets are gonna have the day tonight. The Sharks are gonna have their way tonight. The Puerto Ricans rumble. Fair fight, but if they start a rumble, we'll rumble and rise. We're gonna hand them a surprise.
Well, we're back talking about the Tonight Quintet. Christine, thank you again for joining me here today.
Yeah, of course. We'll see if we can get through this without talking over each other the whole time.
To pull the curtain back a little bit, we've recorded now 3 episodes in a row. So if we get a little punchy, this is probably why, because our minds have completely are gone. So with the Tonight Quintet, of course, what I wanted to kind of just start this conversation off with is that this feels like such a Sondheim thing, which I'm sure had been done in musical theater beforehand. But he has famously said that when there are a bunch of people on stage singing, he can't stand it when they're all singing the same thing.
Right. Because
it's like, no, there are different characters. They're going to be experiencing this differently. They're going to be expressing that in different ways. So except for very specific instances, he doesn't like it when multiple characters are singing the exact same thing at the same time. Tonight Quintet is great because you have 2 melodies that are going over top of one another, sung at the same time, and you're trying to make sense of it on stage. This is, I think, where some of that experimental stuff is coming through.
And I guess to jump the gun a little, do you know if this is the first time this is done? Because, obviously Les Mis with One Day More, Hamilton with Nonstop, this has been done in late.
Oh, yeah, it's been done so much since then.
Do you happen to know?
I don't. I'm not confident to say that this is the first time. As with anything, maybe Allegro did it because it's referenced all the time as being actually the first thing that did this was Allegro. And I've never actually listened to that musical, so I actually have no idea. I feel like it would be one of the first times for sure.
Yeah. It does seem like all the other like Rodgers and Hammerstein shows I know are very straightforward as far as multiple people singing. Like they take their turn.
And as far as like an act closer, again, Sondheim would return to this for like A Weekend in the Country, or even Sweeney Todd has a little bit of that stuff that goes on. He would come back to this multiple times.
Yeah, which I actually didn't know until I want to say like yesterday, that this was actually written before the Tonight duet was written, and he actually pulled the duet from this song.
Yeah, it's not the other way around like you would think it would be.
Yeah, because when you think of like, again, Les Mis, it's like, oh, we're hearing all the melodies that we've already heard people sing. So they probably just took them and like wrote them into this song. But no, this is the opposite. So it was completely new. And they were like, yeah, we're just going to write new melodies for everyone, basically.
It's also one of my favorite things in this entire show. I love this song, which is partly why I wanted to talk about it. There's multiple other reasons why I think we should talk, because it's literally the whole company on stage singing. But for whatever reason, like just the way that Bernstein has written this, how it's been orchestrated, even the lyrics on top of themselves, I just find it so thrilling as all the voices kind of come together.
Yeah.
Into that crescendo at the very end. Like, unless you're awful singers, like it's hard not to make this work.
Right. And also just like having Maria hit that top note over everybody else. Yeah, like because it feels like people are starting in such different spots in this song, but then they're just getting like closer and closer until they're all actually singing the same thing, which is really interesting to both see and hear.
As far as how we got here, last week we were talking about America. So what's happened in the show since America?
So actually not that much. In the show, we basically cut to the Jets side of things where they're all, ganged up. They haven't even like decided the terms of the fight yet. They're just sitting in Doc's shop waiting for the sharks to show up, and they're like just have excess energy and anxiety. And Riff is like, you guys need to stay cool because we need to do this. Yeah,
I do like in song form, he's like, guys, fucking cool your shit, okay? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, basically. So they do a whole song and dance number about that. And then the sharks show up, they hash out some terms, and they end up, they're like, oh, like, what if we bring guns to this fight and we like fight it out like men or whatever. And this is after One Hand, One Heart, too.
It is, yeah.
So before we see this happen, so Tony visits Maria at the dress shop. So Anita definitely knows about them now. She's like, all right, into your funeral, do whatever. They quote unquote get married in this dress shop where they sing a very lovely duet about it. And Maria's like, oh yeah, like things will be perfect now. Tony's like, oh yeah, besides this like, rumble that's happening. And she's like, what rumble? So she begs him to go like call it off.
Say what? Yeah.
But when they're at this war council now, they're just like escalating things. They're like, fists, bricks, like guns, like what's gonna make us look the most macho? And Tony's like, if you really want to fight, you should just do it like a fair fight. So just like, a fist fight on your own. And then like neither of them really want to back down and say they're like scared of a fair fight. So they agree to that. And then Tony's happy because he's like, I've de-escalated things. I'm doing a great job. And the Sharks and the Jets are just like getting ready for this fight. I think they're putting up Diesel from the Jets against Bernardo from the Sharks. Also, the Jets' names are like, I want a backstory of how each one got named. Because character biography about how each one got named.
Because that's there's Baby John, there's Arab,
Action.
Oh, Anybody's, yeah, Action.
I do want to know a lot more about Anybody's. Like that's just such a random role that seems like commentary, but not fully fleshed out.
And I don't know if they're going to lean more into that because, like in the movie, it's played by a girl, right? Anybody is played by
a girl, yeah.
Sorry, traditionally a girl, and so some people have even read that as being like a transgender role. So I personally do not think that was the intention of like the creators of this, but absolutely could be portrayed that way 100%. But yes, like I agree. It's like this backstory that Tony Kushner wrote for all these characters for the movies. Like, can I read through that? Because I'd love to know what your backstory is.
I want to know about the guy named Big Deal. Like, just tell me how he got that name. I like how all of the Jets have very like they have their own like they must be like gang nicknames except for Tony. Tony's like, I'm done with that life.
Yeah, because the Sharks don't have nicknames, right?
Exactly. Well, I'm looking at the playbill from the 2020 revival, and there is one guy named Anxious, which is also just kind of funny. And there's also a moose and a mouthpiece, but the rest are like Pepe, Indio, Luis, Toro, Wano. Obviously, you have Bernardo and Chino too. Those are like, and I don't know, maybe it was like racism to give them like classically Hispanic names, or if it was just like part of some sort of backstory that the creators came up with. Like, I don't know what their reasoning for that was.
Well, one of the things too, like something I think we have not mentioned is that part of the creation of the Jets, at least, was these are kids that are, very 1950s. They're into baseball, maybe into cars, definitely into comic books and that sort of thing. So a lot of like their references are that specifically. I believe, it's in Krupke. Yeah, it's in Krupke where they say like leaping lizards, which is from Annie. Like that is, they're just adapting the comic strip. And there's something else they say, which was another comic strip that they bring in as a statement inside of that song. Yeah, like they're all wrapped up in that and probably giving themselves nicknames like a superhero or something like that was like par for the course.
Yeah, and presumably, I guess the Sharks did not have that sort of experience. So they're just going by their regular names. But then there are the ones that aren't. Wonder about them.
By the way, just because we talked very briefly here about One Hand, One Heart, it always cracks me up the fact that Sondheim trolled Leonard Bernstein with that song a bit, because before it really was like bum bum bum, like that's all that the song was. It was like whole notes, like just held for so long, and so he wrote the song that went one word, one bar, my word, your bar. And so then that convinced him to actually put like quarter notes so that they could actually make words.
Yeah. Like sometimes Leonard Bernstein gets a little caught up in his own genius.
That's right. Beautiful song, but nothing, you cannot sing this.
Yeah.
There's nothing to sing. Going to break into the show here again a little bit earlier than normal, but we do have a very full conversation about this song after this ad read segment. You know, if you'd like to help support the show for absolutely free, you can give a rating and review on whatever app you listen to podcasts in. That's, of course, greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to help monetarily, which will only help to grow and make this show better, you can do so over at our Patreon page. Please do not donate if it impacts you negatively financially. I also need to give a huge thank you to the God That's Good tier from Patreon, the triumphant Quintet. Good that we're also talking about a quintet here above Jack, Todd, Carrie, Woody, and Louise. Putting Together is, of course, a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. The Alberta Podcast Network promotes and supports Alberta-made podcasts and connects their audiences with Alberta-based businesses and organizations. This episode of Putting It Together is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. You know, in many cases, winter is already here, but winter is coming regardless, and energy usage for all Albertans will be increasing. So now is a great time for listeners to look at their utility bills and ensure that they are on the best plan. Albertans have a choice of who they pay their utility bills to. Park Power is happy to provide free, no obligations comparisons. If you decide to switch providers, it's easy and you can feel good knowing that you are supporting a local business and helping to give back to our communities with your utilities bills. Learn more at parkpower.ca. This episode of Putting It Together is also brought to you by Alberta Association of Optometrists, proudly celebrating a century of caring for Albertans. You know what happens? Many people don't call their optometrist first for urgent eye care when they need it. From spring cleaning mishaps to winter eye infections, if you or your family have an eye emergency, doctors of optometry are trained to diagnose, treat, and prescribe medications, no referral necessary. And just a reminder, Alberta Health coverage is available towards your urgent eye care appointment. To find an optometrist in your area, you can visit optometrists.ab.ca. It should be also noted that the Alberta Association of Optometrists represents more than 800 doctors of optometry in over 80 communities across the province. Members are highly trained, regulated health professionals who provide primary eye health and vision care to Albertans. Learn more at optometrists.ab.ca. Cool. So of course the Tonight Quintet here is them all coming together. They all have their motivations, all these different characters. The gangs are going to the Rumble. Tony is meeting Maria. Anita's going on a date. Like all of this stuff is happening all at one time. And this is also closing out Act 1 here, but this is how we jump into it. So the Jets go, the Jets are going to have their day tonight. The Sharks go, the Sharks are going to have their way tonight. The Puerto Ricans grumble, fair fight. But if they start a rumble, we'll rumble them, right? We're going to hand them a surprise tonight. We're going to cut them down to size tonight. We said, okay, no rumpus, no tricks, but just in case they jump us, we're ready to mix tonight. And then they all come together. We're going to rock it tonight. We're going to jazz it up and have us a ball. They're going to get it tonight. The more they turn it on, the harder they'll fall. Well, they began it. And we're the ones to stop them once and for all tonight.
The Jets are gonna have their day tonight. The Jets are gonna have their way tonight. The Puerto Ricans grumble, fair fight. But if they start a rumble, we'll rumble them right. We're gonna hand them a surprise tonight. We're gonna cut them down to size tonight. We said okay, no rumpus, no tricks, but just in case they jump us, we're ready to mix tonight. We're gonna rock it tonight. We're gonna jazz it up and have us a ball. They're gonna get it tonight. The more they turn it on, the harder they fall. Well, they began it, and we're the ones to stop them once and for all tonight.
You can envision this on stage here, at least. It's like these two rebel people, two opposite sides of the stage, kind of going back and forth with one another. And even in the movie version, the original movie version, they do, I think, a good job of like cutting between them and in different locations and stuff as they're kind of marching towards the rumble itself.
Mm-hmm. I always think it's hard to do counterpoint in movies because you either end up with like a super cheesy split screen or, you know, like it's just tough. And I don't think the way they did it is perfect, but it works well enough because you know who is singing what and what's going on. I also like the rhyme between rumpus and jump us.
I know, it's so fun.
Like, okay, that I don't know if people would say that, but it works well enough that
sure.
I'll let it pass. So part of the reason I brought up Tony showing up to, talk them down is because I find it really funny that the Jets are like, the Puerto Ricans grumble, fair fight. I'm like, no, that was Tony. Like, that was definitely
right.
Not the Puerto Ricans. They just want to they're looking for reasons to discredit the Sharks more.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it here in a previous episode that we've recorded that, not every time people sing are you getting a unbiased narrator, right? Yeah. An unreliable narrator sometimes. And that took me a long time to realize, like, well, they're singing it, so it has to be true. It's like, no, you can sing and still be lying to the audience or to yourself or to another character. So.
Right. But then it's also, so I wonder about, again, the history of these two gangs. Like, because the way that they're approaching this rumble makes it seem like they've never done this before.
Right.
Like the
There's
way
been a
that
lot of talk
they're
before this.
Very excited about it. And even in the prologue for the movie, they do get in like little skirmishes, but if anything, they look like, almost like pranks. And I mean, I think part of that is because it's like ballet. So it's not you don't feel like anyone's actually getting hurt. Yeah, they're very excited to go fight with each other. And again, with the whole war council where they're like, oh, what if we use bricks? What if we use like pipes? What if we use guns? They're like very excited by this prospect of war. So it feels like they haven't done this before. But also I feel like the show wants to make us think that there's this huge history behind these two gangs, that they've been going at it for years. So I wonder if that was like a different creative team sort of at odds with each other, like not on the same page about that, or if they just like overlooked that, or, I don't really know about that. And I'm assuming with Tony Kushner's script, that might be more consistent. Yeah,
the show, the relationship between the two gangs to me is a little bit reminiscent of like Lord of the Flies, in that it's kids who kind of understand the mechanisms of like government in an abstract sort of way, but are still kids themselves. They still have are overcome with emotion and want to settle their scores by fighting or by violence quicker than talking it through or something like that. And that's what it sounds like to me. Like these skirmishes they've had, like maybe they've roughed each other up or played a prank or something, but they've never gone this far where they're like, let's bring knives and guns and like let's kill somebody.
Do you remember what the inciting incident for them wanting a war council? I feel like was there something that happened in the prologue? Was it that? Or because when they were heading to the dance, I think they were already planning on doing this war council. But I don't remember if there was a reason why.
I don't know. I think within the ballet sequence, it is very clear, like, hey, the Sharks are only allowed on these streets in New York. We're allowed on these streets in New York. Don't cross over at all. And so I think that the War Council is more like, this is our area, this is your area, don't come into our areas, or like, let's broaden this out, or something
it
like
also
that.
seems like it's kind of like whoever wins this wins the entire territory sort of thing, right?
Right.
So it's like, this is our chance to settle it. And like, when the Jets say like, oh, well, they began it, and the Sharks are like, they began it. And they're very self-congratulatory. We're going to stop this all tonight. We're going to like fix everything. It's going to be peaceful again because we're going to win this and everything is going to be perfectly fine, which is, not that dissimilar from how America approaches international conflicts. So
listen, we're going to go into Afghanistan. We're going to be there for like a few months maximum. Okay. Everything's going to be fine. So Anita is who kicks up next, and she says Anita's going to get her kicks tonight. We'll have our private little mix tonight. He'll walk in hot and tired. So what? Don't matter if he's tired as long as he's hot tonight. And Tony go, oh, I should point out, they didn't say that in the movie because they found it too racy. So she had to change it to, he'll walk in hot and tired, poor dear. Don't matter if he's tired as long as he's near. Not quite as good, but Tony comes up and says, tonight won't be just any night. Tonight there will be no morning star. Tonight, I'll see my love tonight, and for us, stars will stop where they are. Today, the minutes seem like hours. The hours go so slowly, and still the sky is light. Oh, moon, grow bright, and make this endless day, endless night, tonight.
Anita's gonna get her kicks tonight. We'll have a private little mix tonight. He'll walk in hot and tired, so what? Don't matter if he's tired, as long as he's hot.
Tonight won't be just any night. Tonight there will be no morning star. Tonight, I'll see my love tonight, and for us, stars will stop where they are. Today, the minutes seem like hours, the hours go so slowly, and still the sky is light. Oh, moon, grow bright, and make this endless day, endless night.
So I literally wrote down, why is Anita a central figure in this song?
I know. There really is no reason other than they need the fifth person for the quintet.
Yeah, but it's like, do they even know? Like, it's just, I guess she's also a stand-in for every other one of the Shark girls here, where it's like, their, partners and boyfriends or whoever are going off to fight in this rumble. And they're probably all sort of thinking the same thing, where it's like, oh, it's just some stupid fight, and then they'll come back and we'll have a great time. Yeah. And so like, I'm guessing that's why Anita is in this, but there really is no reason for her to be.
No. Just let's talk about how hot Bernardo is. Come on.
She had a whole book scene to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it is also just more of the her shock when she finds out that Bernardo is dead, which you actually don't even see on screen. Like you see in A Boy Like That is when I think you see her reaction for the first time. But yeah, I guess it's just to like sort of underscore how not seriously they take this fight. And it's a little bit of a contrast between the Jets and the Sharks being like, we're going to end this. We're going to fuck them up. And Anita's like, I'm just going to wait for him to come home. I'm going to like draw myself a bath. I'm going to, like he's going to be so hot. And yeah, it's, I don't know. I think it's fine that she's there, but it does seem a little out of place when you hear it, I think.
I guess you could make the argument of like, this is great foreshadowing or not even foreshadowing, dramatic irony, I guess is what it would be for her being so optimistic and then it crumbling and then her having that song at the very end.
Like,
I had
love. I feel like by this point, because there was a whole book scene about this, it seems a little like
you don't really need
like it's beating it in a little too much to be like, because she's not saying anything new either. She's saying the exact same thing she was saying to Maria, which also is a hilarious conversation. He's like, when your brother comes back from a fight, he's so healthy. And Maria's like, I really don't want to be listening to this.
Please don't tell me this. I don't need to know this. I mean, this is basically the Tonight song that we've already heard in the show, but brought back here in the quintet, even though this was written first. But yeah.
I do wonder about this too, where he's talking about how he wants the night to never end. Is that because the relationship is still secret, so they can't, like, it's like it has to be a nighttime only thing. They can't be together during daylight, I guess, is what he's saying.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to sneak around. I mean, they basically got fake married in this one hand, one heart scene here. So yeah, they're trying to take it to that next level.
And they, I think they were talking about like running away together or something too, but they were like, oh, but my family's here and stuff.
Get over yourselves. Yeah, just go.
Yeah. I do think it's, you know, this is a little more flowery than what we might expect from Tony. But at the same time, I feel like it leans into that sort of theme of religion and prayer a little bit, especially the second half of that, where he's like, oh, moon, grow bright and make this endless day, endless night. Which I think is also just a great way of encapsulating everything, because he's like, oh, the day lasted so long. Like, I just wanted to see Maria at the end of the day, but I had to wait the entire day until I could see her, and it was just endless. But now if we could do that again, but for the evening, like, that would be perfect.
It's one of those things, like, I don't know, maybe I'm too blinded by nostalgia at this point, but because I love the melody so much for this section, like the Tonight by itself and this section within the Tonight Quintet, I guess I just forgive it because I think the lyrics work so well on top of that melody and they rhyme so nicely. And I think it's evocative of his true feelings. So while it's like, on one hand, it's like, yes, I get it. He's a former gang leader, probably would not say what he's saying here, but also it's beautiful. So I don't know. Yeah. It works for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like, again, with the whole suspension of disbelief, we've talked about it in previous episodes of how this whole show is very glossy and romanticized on its surface. And so you just sort of have to play into that and accept that these characters are not real people. And they are, like, for the most part, caricatures. Like, most of these characters are not. Tony is actually probably one of the more three-dimensional characters in the show, but they're still in a musical. They're still like, this is a very golden age sensibility type of musical where I feel like everybody speaks in such poetry and their prose is always amazing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you just needed to look pretty and, you know, sing a love song to each other. I mean, I don't know if you've watched the show Schmigadoon or not at all, but it's basically what their recurring comment is like, some of these songs don't really make sense, but they just need to be sung at this point. So let's just do it.
It's like, oh, I feel a love song coming up. Like, oh, let me just, you know, sing some lines that may or may not work.
And you can't have love without having a lover's spat.
Would you leave us alone for just a minute?
Seriously, please.
First she says something bound to get his gander.
Then he says something mean to get her back.
Then she complains that he don't understand her.
And then he gives her a smack.
No, oh no, that's not okay. Unless it's consensual.
So Riff is the one who continues on, and he's singing basically to Tony. He says, I'm counting on you to be there tonight when Diesel wins it fair and square tonight. That Puerto Rican punk'll go down. And when he's hollered uncle, we'll tear up the town tonight. This is when everyone kind of starts singing over top of one another. So you have like Maria, Riff, Tony, some of the Sharks, and even Anita going like, tonight won't be just any night. So I can count on you, boy. All right, we're going to have us a ball. All right, womb to tomb, sperm to worm. I'll see you there about 8 tonight. We're going to rock it tonight. And then Bernardo and the Sharks, we're going to jazz it tonight. We're going to get it tonight. They began it, and we're the ones to stop them once and for all. The Sharks are going to have their way. The Sharks are going to have their day. We're going to rock it tonight. while Anita is singing tonight, late tonight, late tonight. We're going to mix it tonight. Anita's going to have her day. Anita's going to have her day. Bernardo's going to have his way tonight. Tonight, this very night. We're going to rock it tonight, tonight. The Riff and the Jets are going, they began it. They began it. We'll stop them once and for all. The Jets are going to have their day. The Jets are going to have their way. We're going to rock it tonight, tonight. Maria is singing, tonight there will be no morning star. Tonight, tonight, I'll see my love tonight. And for us, stars will stop where they are. And then at the end, today, the minutes seem like hours. The hours go so slowly. Still the sky is light. O moon, grow bright and make this endless day, endless night, tonight.
We're counting on you to be there tonight. When Diesel wins at fair and square tonight. That Puerto Rican punk will go down, and when he's hollering uncle, we'll tear up the town. So I can count on you, boy. All right. We're gonna have us a ball. All right. Sperm's a word. I'll see you there about 8 tonight. We're gonna rock it tonight. We're gonna dance it tonight.
So as I always like to say at these moments, there is no way you being in the audience would pick up on all of this the very first listen through or viewing.
Yeah. I think so the smart thing that most of songs like this do is it's either once that simultaneous singing happens, it's either parts that you've heard before, it's not really adding anything new.
Right.
Or it's stuff that is like little Easter eggs for you to dig through. Because Anita's not singing anything different. Maria is just singing the exact same thing that Tony was singing.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jets and the Sharks are kind of just saying the same thing they've been saying. So
yeah, and sometimes you do layer on top. So when they both say like they began it, they're saying it to the other person, but they're overlapping it.
Yeah.
So it kind of is. So as Sondheim would say, like that works because they're singing the same thing, but they're two different emotions happening.
Yeah.
At that point.
So in the first verse that the Sharks sing, the Sharks do say we're going to hand them a surprise tonight. And so that you can already kind of see, like, I mean, you can say like, oh, well, they don't think we're going to win and we're going to win. And that's going to be the surprise. But, Bernardo did pull out a switchblade like at the fight. Like he had that on him when he wasn't supposed to. And so did Riff, I think, actually. So they definitely were like making contingency plans. And when Riff tells Tony, like, we need you to be there, like if they're just watching, like, I get that he probably wants him there for moral support, but he's probably also like, okay, this will probably go into like an all-out brawl and not just it's not gonna we're not the types of people who play by the rules here. So yeah, I think you could already
you might have heard of me. I'm a big deal. So I mean
yeah. They do have some interesting bits here. And again, this part with Riff, I think makes the Anita part more out of place because this is plot and Anita is not. Like Riff is like, like it's literally that same scene in Les Mis where Marius is like, do I go and fight with my friends or do I go be with the one that I love? It's the exact same scene.
Right. Yeah, I know it's true. I mean, and it's just like looking at what they're actually saying here is so interesting. Like you're saying they're not saying anything revelatory necessarily, but they are slipping in the fact like Anita's saying Bernardo's going to have his way tonight. It's like, okay, wow. And for me, honestly, there's that moment where it's usually like Tony when he sings his like today the minutes seem like hours while everyone else is like singing underneath him. I love that moment. And then as you already mentioned, like Marie hits that high note at the very end as we like crescendo into that very last moment. It's like the best of musical theater for me to get all of that like harmony happening at once.
Yeah. And also it just amuses me how many times they say we're gonna have our day tonight. It's like tonight, but we're gonna have a day, which is already over. So I like that. And I think Well, I guess the other part about this that I wanted to talk about was this is not actually the Act One finale, because the Act One finale is the Rumble. And
True.
the times that I've watched it on stage, it's been awkward every time. And I think it's purposefully awkward, but I just don't like it. Where the Rumble happens and there's just two dead bodies on stage, and then the house lights go up, and you're like, I don't know
Wait a
what
second.
to do right now. And maybe if you're lucky, the curtain will come down before the house lights go up. But I think there's been once where the house lights went up and you were just still watching these people lying on stage.
Well, I read, I don't think it was in the original Broadway cast, but I do remember reading a production that, just had the two actors lay dead on stage for the entire intermission. And he came back and there's still two dead bodies on stage. And then as Act Two says, it's I Feel Pretty, right?
Right.
So that's when the scrim comes down, the bodies are hidden, and I Feel Pretty happens. Like, whoa, what is happening?
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I hate ending intermission on a note. Like Dear Hansen, the stage show, does this too, where right before you go to intermission, it's a super awkward moment. And you don't feel good about it. Like, cause I think there's suspense. And then there's also just like, oh no, like, I don't know. I just don't like that. But also I was thinking about it and I was like, if this were actually the Act One finale, there would be no room for I Feel Pretty in the second act, because it only worked as a second act opener. To that point, the 2020 revival just straight up cut I Feel Pretty. It's like, we don't need this. Because they also took out the intermission. They cut it to an hour 40.
Yeah, it's only I was gonna say it's like an hour and 40 minutes or something. Yeah.
Which again, I have a lot to say on that. I have an episode about it on my podcast. Check it out. Right. But yeah, this does flow like pretty much straight into the Rumble. I think there might be, just depending on who's directing it, I guess there might be some time between when they actually begin the Rumble and when this song ends. But it is just like it's the Yorktown of the song, where Yorktown feels like it should be the end of the act, but then it's like, no, wait, we have nonstop coming. And so it's just, I don't know. How do you have any thoughts on that? I know you said you haven't seen a staged version of this.
Yeah, I've never seen a staged version, so I can only speak to my, I guess, feelings here. This like people want to basically apply, I think, at the end of this, and they probably do. I'm gonna guess. Like, it's such a thrilling moment to then like the Rumble happening after that. Yeah, it's just weird pacing. It's weird pacing for a musical to have, I think. But then also, like, what do you do? Do you open Act Two with the Rumble? Like, I don't know if you can do that either, because this is kind of what it leads up to, and then Act Two is the whole fallout from it. Yeah. So I wonder if there was ever discussion about there being it couldn't be this song, but like another song to like end
to not have
the actual act itself,
because it ends on like a triumphant note. And I think that's why it feels like it's, the end of the act, and like, oh, we have everybody on stage, we're recapping what everybody is up to, and it's like, it seems like it's preparing you for, because also if you didn't know the story, you'd assume that a good chunk of the second act is the Rumble, I think. Like, it just gets like, it get dragged out, or like they would continue fighting for a good amount of time, even if it's not the actual Rumble. But the Rumble is over in like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is going a completely different direction than I would have assumed. Yeah, like I think maybe they should have had it. I actually think the movie works well for this too, though, because, first of all, there's no chance for you to think about, should I be applauding? Should I not be applauding?
Exactly. Yeah.
When it's the movie, because it just keeps going, which I think is what the 2020 revival wanted. The reason for making it one act was because they said like, oh, this entire story happened over the course of like 2.5 days. And we want that time period to be apparent. We like, this is just, the story starts and it just keeps rolling down the hill, and we want it to just like keep picking up momentum, and we cannot stop in the middle. Yeah.
I wonder if that's just the difference between adaptation, because I think in a movie you can get away with this. And then it's up to the director to decide, do we keep I Feel Pretty or not? Because as you said, I Feel Pretty really is there for a dramatic irony, a way to bring us back in Act Two and not be so depressed. But remember, I Feel Pretty ends with Chino running in and being like, Bernardo's dead. So like there is that element that you can play around with. But for a stage show, right, like what you have to contend with is like we need to have an act break. Where do we do it? you could potentially do it here.
Right.
And then open act 2 with the rumble. I don't think that's a terrible idea.
Mhm.
You could make that work, or you do it after the rumble and use the song as the buffet or the buffer when you come back in.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of agree with you though. I think ending your act with 2 dead bodies is a bold way, and I think it speaks to them wanting to be like this artistic piece that they're playing around with. And I wonder if that's why audiences were so lukewarm to it in the stage version, but were so much more willing to go along with it in the movie version, just because of that different way you're experiencing
I feel
it.
like because of the way that this song ends, though, also plays into it, where if this song didn't end on such a literal high note, then it's literally like jerking you from the highest emotion to the lowest emotion within the span of
Right.
2 songs. And it's like, I think the first time I saw this on stage, I literally at the end of Tonight Quintet was like, all right, cool. I'm ready to leave my row and go to the bathroom or something. And then I was like,
Wait,
no,
there's
it's
more?
still going. And it was like, oh, but we were in such a good place. And oh no. And yeah, it's just such a sudden dip in emotion that I think that might be why it's so uncomfortable too. Like if it was like more of a steady incline, or I don't even know.
Yeah.
Then I think it would feel different and it would feel less awkward and horrifying, but maybe that's what they were going for also. Cause
Yeah, I think there's some intent in there too, for sure.
but yeah, I don't, it just feels awkward to have an applause break there when all of a sudden they're like ready to be intense and start staring each other down too.
Right. Now, you called out the fact that you loved the rumpus and jumpus line. How does this one, the punkle and uncle, work for you?
That's great too. I love when they have like fake contractions. Like it's, like, I mean, you can basically contract with anything at the end, but you don't really see people saying punkle.
No. I say punkle all the time. It's one of those things as well that I find Sondheim so great at. Again, I'm definitely biased, but he'll often do stuff like this where he'll rhyme random things together.
Coercionable.
Yeah, but like at first listen, not really keen in that's a rhyme that I just heard. Like it just feels so natural for them to say what they're saying. And then when you look at it like, oh, no, I see what they're doing here. Punkle and his rhyme with uncle here later on. As far as the quintet goes, like if we're looking at songs from this show, again, is this top 5, middle 5, bottom 5?
Probably top 5. I'm trying to see just to get a list of all the songs so I know what I'm talking about, because otherwise I'm just going to put everything into the same bucket. So I did say I liked Something's Coming. Well, I guess it also depends if we're counting only sung songs or instrumentals too, because I do love Dance at the Gym.
Even though they yell mambo and they don't do a mambo.
Yeah, which also I'm not familiar with mambo enough to tell, but when you're doing a mambo, do you actually yell mambo while you're doing mambo?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
And it's also funny.
Although I do that for just random things in my life. So I'm like driving the car, getting groceries.
Just in case, there's some narrator paying attention to your life. Like they need to know what you're up to.
Exactly.
Which is also funny because when we played it in band, they literally have a break where everybody's supposed to yell mambo. And no one likes doing that. Like no one enjoys that. I do think this would make my top 5 because I like A Boy Like That. I Have a Love. I like America. I like Something's Coming. I like Dance at the Gym. This would probably be like number 5, I think.
Yeah, it's hard for me. I think I would put this in my top 5. Again, just like you, there's so many of them that are so stacked that it's like, oh, well, maybe I push this one out or this one out. But I'm pretty confident this would be top 5 for me. I also just realized once again, I've forgotten to say who sings in this song.
Oh, have fun.
So just for posterity goes, from the original Broadway cast, I mean, this is not absolutely everyone, but the main cast, we have Larry Kirk, Carol Lawrence, Cheetah Rivera, and Ken Leroy. In the movie, Richard Bamer is the actor, Jimmy Bryant is the singer, Natalie Wood is the actor, Marnie Nixon is the singer, with Rita Moreno and George Chakiris. The revival of 2009 is Matt Kavanaugh, Josefina Scaglione, Karen Olivo, and George Akram. And then from the 2020 revival, we have Isaac Cole Powell, Yesenia Ayala, Shireen Pimentel, and Amar Ramasar. I think I mentioned this in our first episode that we did here together, but the Stephen Sondheim Encyclopedia, they actually have a little write-up of the Tonight Quintet, and they say, preceding the rumble, this quintet cranks up the emotion for the inevitable conflict. Burson called this song a call to arms, a prayer, an erotic promise. With counterpointed lyrics and varied meters, it resembles operatic passages by Mozart or Verdi, but it's much jazzier. It's also underlaid with a sense of impending doom. All these forces cannot coexist.
Huh.
I mean, I wonder, honestly, see, the thing about that I kind of disagree with is I actually don't get the impending doom from this song the way that I think they're intending it to be. And I'm wondering if that instead of on that triumphant note, it was like a minor key or something discordant at the end. There's like tonight and then blong, they just like planked on the piano or something
I feel
like that.
Bernstein just didn't get the message for that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's like, and we're going to end it. It's going to be great. We're going to have everyone singing together. And it's like, I don't know if I'm feeling the doom. But I think it's interesting how he mentions there's no room for all these forces to coexist. Like, I like that idea. I don't know if I feel it from this song, but except for the part where, again, if this was the first time this kind of thing was done, then like the audience is probably like, yeah, get rid of some of them. Like, they cannot be here.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Do we know who is doing the orchestrations for the new movie?
Oh, if you give me like 3 seconds, I think I know Dudamel is conducting. And I know Janine Chisori is involved, but I don't know in what aspect. David Newman arranged and adapted Bernstein's original score for the film. Dudamel conducted the New York Phil during the film's recording sessions, with Janine Chisori serving as vocal coach.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do we, because I'm totally not on top of that, but what do we know about him as an orchestrator?
I know him mostly as a composer.
How do I spell his name?
David Newman, like Newman. He did Anastasia, the original film. I think he did Heathers, the film.
Oh yeah, so he's done a bunch of animated stuff. So Brave Little Toaster, Bill and Ted's An Excellent Adventure. Interesting.
Yeah, but I think these were mostly as composer, not as an arranger. Oh, his longtime collaborator is John Williams, but John Williams.
Oh, interesting.
Involved.
I mean, he is like 93 now at this point. So, I mean, okay, I'm interested. I can't wait to see that. Last thing I think we should say about this song, you sent me this link, Rachel Zegler, right? You sent me this video of Rachel Zegler in her high school performance of West Side Story, where she is Maria, right?
Yes.
Still in Maria. Yeah. And even at 17 or 16 years old, I think she was in this, is like phenomenal. So this is just making me more excited about the movie to see how she pulls it off.
Yeah, no, if you follow her on social media, she's posted a lot of videos of herself singing. She's been great at the whole social media thing. Like, she has it on lock. And people, even before, I remember I was sort of following the casting news for this, and there were rumors that it was down to her and Camila Cabello, which is close.
Wow. Yeah.
And so like people
it was actually between her and James Corden, and James just missed out.
His range was slightly off.
Yeah, right.
But so like people had already like sort of known about her, and she had already started amassing a social media presence before she was officially announced.
I'm guessing like what, on TikTok or something like that?
I think it was mostly Instagram. She is like pretty active on Twitter as well, I think. But now I think it is a lot of TikTok. Yeah, so people had already been like rooting for her and stuff. And I actually wonder if like the studio had seen that and decided to cast her as that, because it's pretty rare that they would cast a total unknown for this big of a role. Or I wonder if they were like planning on doing that anyway. But yeah, like she definitely has been pretty active. She sings a lot. And she's not like, she can also belt and stuff. There's a video of her singing Shallow from A Star Is Born where she just like knocks that out of the park too. But she is quite good. Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I'm not so sure about Mr. Elgort, how good of a singer he is, but well, I guess we shall find out.
Right. When I saw West Side Story in my college production, it was like a collaboration with the dance school because, they need those dancers. And the guy that played Riff, unfortunately, was not the best singer because he was a great dancer. But Riff gets the hardest songs to sing between the Jet song and Cool. It was like, yeah, that's just a tough track. Like, I didn't think about it before then, but you have to be like one of the primary dancers. And you also have to be able to hit like crazy intervals and Cool that Bernstein just decided to put there for no.
Yeah, it's not fair. Like you have to be like so good in both avenues. So,
but Mike Feist, I believe, is Riff in the movie, who he is known for playing Connor in the original Dear Evan Hansen show. I mean, just overall, I'm pretty excited for this cast too. But yeah, Ansel Elgort is definitely the big question.
Well, I think they were probably banking on his like rising star too at the time of casting, and that has kind of fallen very precipitously here in recent years.
Yeah, only a little bit though. I think I feel like he is still fairly well regarded for the most part. But I am curious when they'll not even the actual like recording. I just want a track list of this show.
And I mean, we're recording this in October. I'm guessing like a month before that movie releases, or a couple weeks before, is when you'll start to see it start to pop up on the streaming services.
I think normally the album comes out either a week or two before the movie release, so we probably won't be seeing that for like another month.
But I want to jump into it. I really want to listen to that and see how it sounds.
Yeah.
Christine, thank you again for doing this. Next week we're going to be talking about I Feel Pretty. So I will try my best to feel pretty in the intervening week. We're doing this all the time, but like if people did want to follow you online, how can they do so?
Of course. You can follow me on Twitter at Across the Arch. Mostly a theater Twitter for me. And my podcast that I mentioned earlier in the show, me and a friend talk about mostly current shows playing on Broadway. But that is Bottomless Broadway. And you can also find us on any podcatcher or Twitter, Instagram at Bottomless Bway. So feel free to check out any of those.
You definitely have made me want to watch My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm so bad with TV shows of like just trying to carve out time. For some reason, it's easy for me to go and watch a single movie, but for a TV, like that's a commitment. That's like so much time I have to.
It's almost the opposite for me, where for movies, I'm like, okay, I can schedule this into my day, and it doesn't feel ridiculous scheduling a movie because you're like, it's like an event. Whereas like TV, I also don't honestly watch a lot of TV because I can't put on a TV show in the background. Like I'm either watching the TV show or I'm doing something. But once I find a good TV show, and this one I was actually watching originally as it aired every week because it aired on the CW. And so it was actually like cable network, but now it's on Netflix. So I was actually watching it, but then it was like, because I was watching it as it aired, that was a scheduled event as well. But when I was rewatching it again on Netflix, I just loved the show so much. I was like, I'm gonna just keep watching the next episode. And like once you get into, I feel like there's just the barrier of being like, I need to just watch the first couple episodes, and then it, for me at least, it comes through.
For me, my biggest pitch right now, it's going to sound like I now watch a ton of TV shows. I like can count on one hand the amount of TV shows I have watched this past year. But I got enough people to tell me to watch Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, yeah.
I heard about this. And I was hooked from the one, and like watched 4 episodes in a row. I liked it so much. But yeah. I highly recommend people watch that show. It has a lot of great Broadway jokes that are super deep cuts. Like it's like there's 5 people who would know what you're talking about.
I watched so I technically also watched the first 4 episodes, but I was like on vacation with friends during the time, so we were like talking to each other. So I am gonna go back and rewatch those because I always read recaps after I watch a TV episode. And I was reading recaps and I was like, I do not remember that happening at all. That sounds I need to actually go and rewatch that. But yeah, it looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great. There's a great anyone can whistle joke in episode 2. So there you go. Thank you, Christine.
Of course.
Thank you so much for listening. You can send emails to puttingittogetherpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow Sondheim Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and you can support the show on Patreon by going to patreon.com/puttingittogetherpodcast. Thank you to the Alberta Podcast Network, to Park Power, and to the Alberta Association of Optometrists here this week. Putting Together is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and pretty much anywhere you can get podcasts from. Consider subscribing so that you never miss an episode. Next week, I Feel Pretty. Also, we'll be talking about the song I Feel Pretty. As always, a big thank you to the great Chris Taniguchi, who designed the podcast artwork, and to Nick Driscoll for composing our theme music. Well, we've reached the end of our episode. Yes, I know. Goodbye for now.